It's a video about the plastic storage area we have and how it's kind of become a mess, and the other side of plastic identification. You can see if people aren't on top of keeping it clean, then we got to take it all apart and clean it. So that's what we're doing. You can see how we've organized this a little bit better. You can see it's only kind of larger pieces in here, and then over in here we have some smaller drops, but this is more for fixturing and little drill blocks. But the biggest important thing is just make sure we don't just pile all this stuff over here. So you can see right here, this is all the stuff that we, like people were just putting in boxes and leaving over there and not keeping it organized. So like this, an example, was a scrap piece. So someone just threw it out here, but yet we have full sheets of this. And same thing with these, they're just little drops. So be respectful to the person and the people that are using this next, because this is how it should be nicely organized. Here we added was just an identifier to help identify the plastics. So this is UHMW natural, and this is a UHM double black. Usually with UHMW, you can bury your thumbnail in it a little bit, where something like an acetal or Delrin is very hard. Another thing with UHMW, it almost sounds like a thud when you hit it together. You hear that? Or when you hit acetal together, it almost sounds like the little pieces of wood on a xylophone. So HDPE is almost in between hardness between acetal and UHMW. So you can kind of dig your fingernail into it, but it seems a little bit more solid white, whereas you can kind of see. Don't keep track of the finish, because you can see this is gloss and this is kind of skeeved, it's been machined, but this looks a little bit more see-through than this. So that's another identifier. This Tyvar 88, this is glass reinforced UHMW for like wear liners. So this again is a little bit harder than UHMW. Again, the acetal or Delrin sounds almost like a xylophone when you're playing it. You can't even put your nail into the edge of it. Teflon's usually heavier. You can push your nail into the side of it. It's about as hard as UHMW, but it feels a little bit softer or heavier. Sorry. And another thing with Teflon is it's almost like it's a little bit more porous on the surface. So this gets dirtier easier than UHMW. So that's just something to keep in mind for identifying the most of the plastics we use. As far as what these plastics do, like UHMW is really good for liners, as far as like chain guides and slider beds and slider plates. Like it's more slippery, right? HDPE is more like plastic construction. So although it's slippery, it's probably not as wear resistant as UHMW. But it's kind of a little bit cheaper option sometimes than UHMW. A Tyvar 88, so Tyvar is almost like Kleenex to tissue paper. So UHMW is like a Tyvar brand. So this is just a brand of UHMW, but it's got embedded plastic glass fibers in it. So this is used more for liners in like dump trucks or like aggregate chutes. So this is super slippery and it's wear resistant. Acetal Delrin, that's again, it's slippery, it's wear resistant. It's a harder plastic that's easier to machine. So that's what those are used for. Teflon is like a higher heat resistant plastic. I think up to 450 degrees Fahrenheit, and it's good for like slider beds and stuff like that, but it's very expensive. So you know, keep that in mind. So in summary, just keep this place tidy. One thing to keep in mind, another one, is like you can see this is a piece of 3/8 UHMW. Now, does it make sense to keep this when we have like full sheets? Probably not. So we can get rid of this. So that's kind of the thought process of some of this. You don't want to make it so you are not keeping anything, because this is more stuff that we don't usually keep full sheets of. It's thicker and it's a little bit harder to come by. But just when you're kind of addressing if you should put something back like this is HDPE, and I know we have full sheets of this, but sometimes it's handy to have a little piece. So sometimes it's not a bad idea to keep that, but you can see the ones with holes in it and little thin strips and Lexan we just get rid of. So this is just going to get tossed in the garbage, and again we're going to try to keep this nice and tidy.